Hello everyone and welcome to a very nice game from round 7 of the 2019 US Championship. We already mentioned in the previous video regarding this championship that Nakamura is in the lead, but we haven't seen, well, even one game from Nakamura so far. So I decided to show this one. It was played yesterday, and it's quite a matchup. Nakamura is some 120 points higher rated than Akobian, but also, you know, in their previous encounters, they played. Nakamura won 7 games, Akobian won only 1 game, and 5 games were drawn. And the only game Akobian ever won against Nakamura was 17 years ago, back in 2002. It was the first game they ever played. So, you know, it wouldn't be all that bad for Akobian to win this one with the white pieces. So let's see what happens without further ado. Akobian has the white pieces and he opens with d4. We have d6 by Nakamura, perhaps asking is maybe Akobian interested in transposing into the pierce defense, but he isn't. He goes knight to f3, we have g6 by Nakamura, c4, and now bishop to g7. We have knight to c3, knight to c6, and now d5, grabbing more space in the center. Knight to e5 by Nakamura, and now knight captures. We have bishop captures and e4 now. So white created this very impressive center, and black, of course, as he did fianchetto the dark square bishop, will have a very strong dark square bishop. Knight to f6. Now, the knight blocks the bishop's retreat to g7, but it doesn't matter. White has no way of taking advantage of it. For example, if you play f4, black can always capture on c3, remove the defender of d4 pawn, and then white even loses a pawn. So there's no way to take advantage of this weird position of the bishop on e5. Bishop to d3 by white, and now we have castles by black. And again, f4 doesn't do anything now, even though you're protecting d4 pawn twice, because bishop d4. And now you're preventing castle, you can go back to b6, and also because the bishop is on d3, the queen can no longer capture the bishop on d4. So after this castle, we have castles by Akobian as well. e6 by Nakamura, going after white's strong center. h3, and now e captures on d5. And here we had a game in 2016 in the European Blitz Championship where Cvitan played e captures on d5 against Onishchuk, and Onishchuk won that game. But here we have c captures on d5. And okay, now it's a different game. We have knight to h5 by Nakamura, hoping to go to this very nice f4 square. And white, of course, prevents it. We have f4, bishop to d4 check, king to h2, and now queen to h4. Already, Nakamura's pieces are piling up in front of white's king, and you have to be very careful. If white makes a slow move, let's say some silly move, then the threat is queen g3 check, and once the king moves, just bishop captures on h3, and white falls apart in various ways. The most obvious one, of course, pawn captures and queen captures with checkmate, as the bishop controls this diagonal. So after queen to h4, Akobian decides queen to e1. He wants to trade queens. He doesn't allow queen g3, and Nakamura decides this is favorable for him. We have queen captures on e1, rook captures on e1, and now Nakamura takes this opportunity to remaneuver the bishop to a much nicer square. Bishop to f2, with an attack against the rook, rook to f1, and now bishop to g3 check. With pressure against the f4 pawn, the king has to move, and now comes f5. And here you cannot push e5. It'd be great if you could, but you can't, because the pawn controls it, but also the bishop controls the e5 square. So that's the problem. But not h1. The king went to g1, not h1. Sorry about that. Now we have f5 as mentioned, and now rook to f3 by white. And here, what do you play here? It's a very interesting position, you know. Try to get a feel of the position, and imagine you're playing black. How do you continue this position? I'll give you, it's not like a puzzle to solve, it's just to find the correct way to continue. And feel free to pause the video while doing so. I'll give you a couple of seconds to decide whether you want to do it or not. If you were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent finder of plans. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, If you found pawn captures immediately on e4, then white will get a very nice expansion for this. For example, knight captures with a double attack against the bishop. Bishop moves, now g3 comes, and white has a very nice position if you continue this way with the black pieces. What Nakamura played is, before, he played bishop captures on f4. Seemingly a temporary pawn sacrifice, piece sacrifice, which Akobian accepts, and only now pawn captures, and now Nakamura can go into some very favorable exchanges for him. So you do have to capture the pawn, bishop captures was played, and only now knight captures on f4, recapturing the piece. Rook a to f1, white doubles up on the f-file, and now g5, just defending. You can't do any damage by going g3, white can just go knight g6, for example, and the rook on f8 will be protected. So we have h4 by white, and now bishop to g4, a very important in-between move that forces the rook to move, and also now black has connected rooks. We have rook to g3, attacking the bishop, and now h5. And here, white wants to win back the pawn, and to do so he must double his pawn. So here h captures on g5, and now rook a to e8. So the material on the board is equal, but as you can see, white has 3 pawn islands, where black has only 2 pawn islands, and white has a doubled g pawn. So this is what Nakamura has to show for his impressive play with the black pieces. We have bishop to f3, offering a trade, and Nakamura doesn't mind. He simply improves the position of the rook, going after the weak d5 pawn. There's no way to increase it, as the bishop will be traded off. We have bishop captures, pawn captures, rook captures, and now comes knight captures on d5, just grabbing that pawn. Knight captures on d5, and now Nakamura trades everything off. Rook captures, king captures, and rook captures on d5. So here we have a position where Nakamura has a well, we could say 4-2 advantage on the queen side, and white has 2-0 advantage on the king side, but it's a double g pawn, easy prey for Nakamura's rook. So white continues to improve the position of the king. We have king to e2, black does the same, king g7, rook to c4, attacking the c7 pawn. Nakamura just defends it. It's a much simpler position to play with the black pieces, but you know, when you're a strong grandmaster, you end up in a better endgame. Rook to e4 by white, going after the 7th rank. King to g6, now going after the g5 pawn, and there's no way to defend it. I mean, if you do something silly, the king and pawn endgame will always be winning for black. After, let's say, king f3, you can go d5, and then the passed pawn will always be winning. So after king g6, we have rook to e7, and now comes rook to b5, going after the b2 pawn, but also defending the b7 pawn. We have b3 by white, defending the b2 pawn, and now just king captures on g5. We have rook to d7, going after the d6 pawn, but now just d5. And Nakamura now has a very strong passed pawn. It will be very, very hard to prevent this. King to d3 by white, we have king to f6, king to c3, and now comes a5. We have rook to c7, just, you know, keeping everything in order, pressuring the pawns, but king to e6. We have a3 by white, and now, again, what do you think the best idea here for black is? Once again, feel free to pause the video and try to find just a very nice maneuver that Nakamura found. I hope you didn't have to pause the video for long, but if you were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent endgame player. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, the idea is d4 with check. You just want to get that king away from the defense of the b3 pawn, and then you can just gobble up all of the pawns there. Here, of course, he decided not to capture it. Akobian played king to c4. We have d3. Now, Nakamura still wants to get rid of this pawn, and the king prevents the rook from joining the hunt for the d3 pawn. King back to c3, and now d2. And now white does have to, lose control of the b3 pawn. King captures on d2 was played. Nakamura captures on b3. We have g4, white starts pushing the passed pawn, but Nakamura just goes a4. We have g5, and now first king to d6, defending the c6 pawn while preparing b5. We have rook to f7, hoping to escort his passed pawn all the way. Now comes b5 by Nakamura. All of the pawns are now protected. G6, and here just rook captures on a3. Here Akobian played pawn to g7. Nakamura just went rook to g3, and it was in this position that Varuzhan Akobian resigned the game on move 47, as there is nothing more to do here. You can never move the rook to the final rank, as you will lose this pawn. If you just promote the pawn, then a rook will just gobble it up, and black has, you know, all the time in the world to just push all of the pawns, improve the position of the king, do whatever, and win the game easily. So yeah, just well, it seemed like a super easy win for Nakamura, and if you go through the game once again, it will be very hard to pinpoint where did white go wrong. Nakamura was just able to trade off in a favorable endgame, and he was able to win this favorable endgame. So that's what it is. Chess is a struggle, and even if you don't make any serious blunder or a serious mistake, you know, just slowly and slowly, if your opponent is able to improve his position and you're not able to keep up, then at some point, you know, the position just crumbles. So yeah, that's what happened here. An excellent victory for Nakamura with the black pieces, and with this victory, he retains his lead in the US Championship. There you have it. We have a nice cross table from Chess24 website. I will also put a link to it in the description below if you want to check it out there. Nakamura in first place with 5 points, then with 4.5 points, Fabiano Caruana, who won a crazy ending against Timur Gareev yesterday. Then Linear Dominguez Perez and Samuel Sevian with 4.5. Then with 4, Wesley So. With 3.5, Jeffrey Xiong. And then we have with 3 points a lot of people: Alexander Lenderman, Samuel Shankland, last year's winner, Ray Robson, and the Wonder Liang. And with 2 points, Varuzhan Akobian with this loss against Nakamura and Timur Gareev. So yeah, there you have it. I do hope you enjoyed it and that you're enjoying this short coverage of the US Championship. I would very much like to hear Akobian's opinion, if he will maybe be doing a video on this game. Or I've seen Nakamura covered his game against Caruana on his channel, so maybe he'll also cover this game. I would be very interested to see how he, you know, his thought process throughout this game. Maybe he'll do it, so we can enjoy that as well. But yeah, we'll see. I would like to thank Ashish Kumar, Dennis Fatland, also Hoodie Guy on Lead Chess if you want to challenge him, Rohan Polidano, Dubravka Juraga, and Nicholas Richmond for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content. Today's video came a little bit earlier, but it's because I might do a second one today. We'll see how it goes. Thank you all, and I will see you soon.